Welcome to our introduction of one-step equations. Before we actually start learning how to solve one-step equations, we're going to look at a couple of properties of equality. A property is basically a rule that numbers follow. So the first property says the addition property of equality. For every real number a, b, and c, a, b, and c, if a equals b, then a plus c equals b plus c. Now you can see that I already wrote on the paper, and what you can do is you can go ahead and pause this video at any time in order to help yourself write all of this in. So for now, as I'm talking, you can start to write it in. And again, if the video goes too fast, you can always press pause and write in anything you didn't get to. So let's give a value of 8. It says that if a equals b, so b has to be something that's also equivalent to 8. So I picked the value 3 plus 5. Now, how did I pick the value 8 and the value 3 plus 5? I just picked any random number because it says for every real number. I like the number 8, so I said 8, and then I knew it had to be a value equal to 8 because it says a equals b. Then I picked a random number for c, which was 7. Now, what we can see over here on the side is that if a plus c, so 8 plus 7, it should be equal to b plus c, which is 5 plus 3 plus 7. Now, both of those equal out to be 15. So this statement is definitely true. The addition property of equality works for any numbers. In my own words, I rewrote the definition. Basically, the addition property of equality is stating that you can add the same number to both sides of an equation, and the equation still stays balanced. In other words, it still stays equal. So it doesn't matter. I could have added 10 to each side, or 1,000 to each side, or -7 to each side, and it will still stay equal or true. All right, the next word we're going to look at is subtraction property of equality. Very, very similar property. I even used the same numbers here, so 8 and then 3 plus 5. Now, for c this time, I still picked 7, but instead of adding, this particular property is showing that we could subtract the same number from both sides of the equation, and it should still stay equal. So let's go ahead and try it. 8 minus 7, and then on this side, 3 plus 5 minus 7. Well, 8 minus 7 is 1. 3 plus 5 is 8, minus 7 is 1. So, again, we see that the subtraction property of equality is true. In other words, the subtraction property of equality states that you can subtract the same number on both sides and it still stays balanced. All right, you're probably noticing a theme here. Multiplication property of equality. Basically, what it's saying is that if I multiply both sides by c, or any real number, it's still going to stay equal. So the values that I picked here are 3, and 6 divided by 2, because 3 is equal to 6 divided by 2. And as you can see in the definition, a has to be equal to b. So let's go ahead and look at my sample problem. By the way, I picked 10 as my value for c this time. Okay, if the multiplication property of equality is true, what it's saying is that I can multiply both sides of an equation by 10 and it won't mess anything up. It'll still be equal. 3 times 10 is 30. 6 divided by 2 is 3, times 10 is 30. So, it is true. You can multiply the same number on both sides and it will still stay balanced or equal. All right, and the last property of equality we're going to visit today is the division property of equality. I picked some new values for a and b here, but again, a has to be equal to b. So for a, I put 10. For b, I put 9 plus 1. For c, I picked 2. The division property of equality says that for every real number a, b, and c, if a equals b, then a can be divided by c and b can be divided by c, and it will still stay equal. Let's check it out. 10 divided by 2, so let's go ahead and finish this problem. 10 divided by 2 is 5. Is that equal to 9 plus 1 over 2? Well, 9 plus 1 is 10, over 2 is 5. So again, I see that it works. You can divide both sides by the same number and it still stays balanced. All right, 2 more very important vocabulary words are below. Solution of the equation is the first one. The value of the variable that makes the equation true. That's what a solution is. It's the value of the variable that makes the equation true. In other words, usually we call it the answer. It's the answer to an equation. So it's whatever number sort of fits in to be the value for x or y or whatever we're solving for, and it makes the equation right. Here's my example. X plus 1 equals 6. In other words, what is the answer for x, the solution? The answer is 5 because 5 plus 1 would equal 6. So the solution or answer is 5. And our final vocabulary word for our introduction to one-step equations is inverse operations. They are operations that undo each other. For example, adding, and subtracting, because addition cancels out subtraction. If I add $5 to my wallet and then I subtract $5 from my wallet, I've canceled that out. That's why it's called inverse. It cancels out. It undoes each other. Multiplication is the inverse for division. Division is the inverse for multiplication. Let's give an example. The number 40. If I multiply 40 times 3, I would get 120. And then if I divide it by 3, I get back down to 40. So multiply and divide undo each other. The other one, which we're not going to look at a whole lot this year, but we'll see it a little bit, is squared and square root. So let's say I take the number 5 and I square it. That's 25. Now, if I take the square root of that, it goes back to 5. So squared and square root undo each other. They are inverse operations. All right, that's it for our vocab lesson. Thanks for watching.